Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Jovanka Jazic, and I am the MC for today's event here at the Adaptavist Group at the Expert Hour, Harnessing Productivity and the Future of Work. I am here joined with some amazing experts from both Adaptavist and from Monday.com to talk about some amazing topics, and we are super excited to get started. So, as I sip my cup of coffee here. That is not tea, not yet. Sorry, everybody out in England. Sacrilege, I know. I am going to start off by introducing Meghan Kutz from my team. Hi, Meghan.
Hey, Jovanka. Thanks for having me. I am coming in from Chicago, Illinois, in the center of the United States, the Midwest. I'm a senior business consultant here at Adaptavist. I have been in work management consulting with Adaptavist for about 4 years. My background is in information architecture, so I feel right at home here. But I have also been in operations. I've been in project management. I have been in channel partner management. And so I'm really eager to lend my perspective to this discussion and learn from my fellow colleagues here today. Super excited. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Great to have you. All right, up next we have Marta Afonso. Hi, Marta.
Hello, I am Marta Afonso, the Brand and Communications Marketing Lead at Upscale, the new Adaptavist Group brand, formerly known as Adaptavist Apps. I am originally from Portugal, the lovely country, and currently based in UK, and I'm super excited to join the discussion with these amazing ladies.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marta. And then last but not least, we have Katherine Heisler from Monday.com. Hi, Kat.
Hello, hi. I'm Kat. I'm the Director of Channel Partnerships at Monday.com. 15 years business development experience, the last 10 specializing in partnerships, and the last 4 specifically at Monday. Monday.com is definitely on the forefront, I would say, of the future of work when it comes to the technologies that empower that. So it is a privilege to get to combine all those experiences and be a part of this panel today. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful. All right. So without further ado, we have some questions that we have pre-curated in advance. But honestly, before we get started, I would just love to know from all of you, what the heck are we going to learn today? What are we going to talk about? Obviously, work management, productivity, all of the great stuff. As I sip my big coffee that's probably bigger than the size of my head, I'd love to hear your opinion on what's going on today.
I'll start. So I think from my perspective, at least, what I am probably really going to be focusing on in terms of the theme throughout today's discussion is this phrase collaborative workflow. And how that's the key to enhancing productivity among teams in any organization, whether or not that team is all based at the same physical location, they're all in the office together, or whether they're scattered across the globe or even across time zones. And how also, even with an open embrace by that organization of AI technologies, how the best work management solutions are people first.
Wonderful. Thanks, Meghan. I think, Marta, you had a point about this as well, what we're going to learn today.
Yeah, so I'm here to hear about others, people's perspectives and to learn from the best, to improve my way of working. But from my side, I'll be talking about balancing productivity and empowering team members to succeed and feel part of a wider team.
Perfect. Wonderful. All right. So I think the next question we're going to go to is actually going to be to Meghan. Meghan, I know that you and I work very close together. I bother you a lot during an average week. So work management is something that we speak about constantly. But in your own words, how would you describe work management? It's one of our, I think it's 5 practices here at Adaptavist, one of the pillars. In your own words, what would you say is work management?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked me to describe it in my own words, because what I'm actually going to do is steal Monday.com's words, not to call them out right from the get-go, but I really love Monday's analogy of describing work management as an orchestra of people, processes, and technology. Kind of every element in your work management solution and strategy has a distinct part to play and a best fit application, right? So you would never give the oboe part to a percussionist. But when you bring them all together, in a thoughtful way, they all come together in harmony. And I think I really love that idea when it comes to work management. Also, it's not just about managing an individual project or even a portfolio of projects, but it's really about the systematic and managerial approach to work at large at your organization. It's not just how to get a task from to do to done, but the method or the orchestration behind how each part in your solution comes into play. Thinking about that thoughtfully and putting, again, the right elements in place among that trio, it ensures that those people, processes, and technology can keep up with the evolutions in your business and in your industry and beyond.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have anything to add to that?
I think that was a really beautiful summation. I guess I'm biased since I work at Monday and we came up with that. But that said, I think, the work management is really defined by the people themselves, right? The people who are on the teams, and being able to make sure that the way work is being managed has a lot of different applications and a lot of different flexible uses. You get more out of people. And I think when we think about work management as that top level topic, right, being able to break it down into, as it was said before, the people, the processes, the projects, and the technologies, you can get more, right, out of what you're trying to accomplish as a group.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kat. All right. And before I move on to the next question, I should probably mention, you've all seen a little bit of a banner pop up there. Don't be scared. That's all part of the show. If you have any questions for our experts, you can always pop them in the comment section on LinkedIn, and we can try and get back to them by the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions or anything that comes top to mind, please put it in the comment section and we'll definitely get to it. Wonderful. So the next question that I have is, how do you balance productivity and innovation as a leader with how quickly things are changing? As a leader, where do you even begin?
I can go next. So I think it's a challenge that all leaders are facing at the moment, but the world is changing so fast, so it's essential to balance the day-to-day efficiency and always keep one eye on the future to stay competitive. So I guess this means actively encouraging new ideas and looking ahead of what the customers will need tomorrow. So in my view, productivity, innovation, they can go hand in hand. One can feed into the other one. And by looking at this way, you can focus on achieving what you actually need on a day-to-day, but also continually improve so you are ready for what the future brings.
Perfect. Meghan, do you have a point about that? Some technical difficulties, and that's okay. It wouldn't be LinkedIn Live if it wasn't a little bit of technical. There you are, Meghan. Hi.
Hi there. So I'm not quite sure if the audience was able to hear the beginning of this, but I really just wanted to thank Marta for that. She talks about anticipating customers' needs and keeping an eye on the future. And I think a lot about that as a consultant to my clients, specifically in this idea around strategic agility. And in my mind, the best work management solution doesn't just care for work execution, right? The execution of day-to-day tasks that deliver a project, but also encompass strategy formulation and execution. What we often see in organizations, and this is a harsh truth, is that leadership engages in strategy formulation and then sometimes successfully and sometimes less successfully cascades that strategy down to other levels of the business, to the execution teams. And then those execution teams put together work that are then in the effort, in their best guess kind of effort of achieving that strategy. But there are very loose connections or very vague connections between the execution of that work and the achieving that strategy. You can often kind of see these as two non-mutually exclusive blocks in many organizations, and there's a gap between there. When you have a more holistic work management solution that drives stronger connections between strategy and execution, you can unlock, again, what I call strategic agility, which allows you to see, again, at that kind of more holistic view, what are teams working on and how do they connect to those more strategic, higher level long-term initiatives and goals? And that allows you to better prioritize those higher level items, to say, how can we pivot our strategy even at the top levels in order to respond to disruption, which we all know can happen at the business level or even globally, or to capture opportunities for innovation. And so, it allows you to be both reactive and proactive. Again, when you have that connection between the strategy, the work that is directly connected to executing that strategy, and the resources that are engaged in executing that work and that strategy. Again, it allows you to capture innovation when you find it. But also on the other side of that, those people that are working on those things, when they have a better understanding, a better context of how their day-to-day work connects to those strategic initiatives, it allows employees to think innovatively, to sort of say, okay, I've been doing this work for a while and I have full understanding of how it connects to this goal, but I have an idea. And they can bring that idea to their line manager. And then if it's a great idea, if it better executes that strategy than what they're doing now, they have the agility to pivot. I also think that it increases motivation and buy-in. When you know what your work is supposed to achieve on a day-to-day basis, it allows you to understand the purpose of what you're doing here. And I think that increases productivity by a wide margin.
Amen to that. Wonderful. Kat, do you have any opinions on that either, or do you want to move on to the next question?
I love this. Like, this is my favorite part of being a leader and working with my team. I and my team are in a very unique position because we work at a global company and we work on a global team, but we are doing very specialized, regionalized work, right? So we are focused on the partners who help implement, service, and resell Monday in North America and Canada. And because we're operating in a global framework, right, we are constantly needing to take what we get from HQ and like the global heads and regionalize it, localize it for our partners. And this is an activity that I believe as a leader, right, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't just come from me. It happens with my people on the ground. So two really exciting examples of this coming to be is one, Q1 is coming to a rapid close here, and we're going to be doing QBRs. And we have a global framework QBR deck, and that's great. It has important information, has the core things we need to review. However, it's missing a lot of the regionalized color we need to add in order to have productive conversations with our partners. So instead of just going along with what we get, I've worked with one of the team members on my team in a working session. We open up a Monday work doc, right? And we just start saying, all right, what do we really need to achieve? What is most important? And what is missing from what we have today? And that becomes this work product that someone on my team gets to take ownership of, right? He has pride in his work because he is taking forward a important regionalized initiative. And we're making it our own, right? And I think that is really where the intersection of empowerment, of being agile, like the strategic agility that we were talking about before, and creating something meaningful without having to, abide by the systems that be. And that's where work gets interesting. And that's where I see my people light up. And I love that.
Wonderful. Well, this is actually a good segue into the idea of how does leadership tackle productivity when we're in a geographically diverse team. Kat, you mentioned that, your team focuses, because you're in North America, of course, when it comes from HQ, you have to digest all this information. But, Marta and Meghan, I'd be curious, since we work for Adaptavist Group, we're all over the world, we're peppered everywhere. And a lot of times teams are working in a way where, we have someone on the West Coast, someone on the East Coast, you have someone in Portugal, you have someone in Kuala Lumpur. How do you find that you win as a team when you work in such a big, diverse group of people in your team? Like, what are things that you can do from your leadership perspective that you think would help with that?
So for me, the key is to being open and building good relationships with people, full stop. That's it. We've all experienced, this challenge in some way or another during COVID, right? So we all had to learn to deal, with the new way of working and reevaluating what productivity looks like without people sitting at their desks. So from my own experience, learning how to communicate with a remote team across many different regions starts with regular check-ins, setting clear expectations and deadlines, and leveraging communications and project management collaboration tools to help and support them. I think it's also important to make time to talk with people about things other than work, to understand what they are dealing with, if there's any stress in their life and how we can help them. I feel that it's also important to create that safe space to discuss things like that. So, we can't all just be focusing on work. We also have to be motivated to come to work, and having that right balance, I think it's key. we are all humans at the end of the day. So even if we're not sitting in the same office together, we can still feel part of the team and, have work friends, as I like to call them.
Perfect. Meghan, do you have anything to add to that as well, in a perfect world?
Yeah, what I will say is that I agree with Marta on every point. And I have, I think, a quick client example for how technology actually facilitates that rather than obfuscates it, that ability to create that human to human connection. I'm working with a client now that is an enterprise level global client. They have people all around the world, and project execution takes place on a global scale, right? So someone in operations in Sweden might be working with someone in commercial and marketing in California, and someone else in South Africa. And so the ability to talk in the same room doesn't always happen, or even synchronously, because time zones are so difficult. And they've been using Monday.com to stand up their global operations. And so what I have seen really work for them is taking full advantage immediately of the social aspect of the software. So in Monday.com, every single item on a board, you have the ability to start an updates thread. So you have this conversational interface where you can provide updates. You can tag people by using the @ and they use this very, very heavily. It's a very simple feature, but I have seen them use it so successfully, one, in able to provide those kind of very timely updates and provide the context that maybe a status alone or an attached file alone will not give that kind of context. You need that kind of conversational general language update from another human to get the full context. But what I've also seen is that it does engender those human-to-human connections. I'm helping them implement this solution, and I'm seeing the way that they're providing those updates now. And people across countries, right, across cultures, they're talking to each other in sort of very friendly, very conversational terms. These are people who may have never even been on a video conference together yet, but because that organization is so entrenched in using that social feature, that it's still a very human connection. And that's when I talk about, when I said at the top of this, collaborative workflow. We are implementing the workflow for them exactly how they work because of Monday's ability to fully customize. But it's their commitment to using the social aspect of the Monday platform that is giving them that success in spinning up a global solution.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. Two things before we move on to the next question. Well, it's actually about a thing and a half. Want to let you know about our digital etiquette report. So we've launched a digital etiquette report called Mind the Generational Gap, which is very interesting. And then we also have one that says productivity is not a place. If you scan the QR code there, you're going to get a copy sent to your inbox. Highly recommend you take a look at that, as well as the other one that we launched the other day. There's some amazing insights on there that our experts are obviously going to touch upon today, but if you want the full report and the full data breakdown, that is the place to go. Wonderful. And then we actually had an audience question, and it's really funny. It's from one of my very good friends, Tamara. So hi, Tamara. Thank you so much for asking the question. So the question is, what are the top characteristics or traits do you think a successful leader should possess? How do we work on obtaining or improving on those said traits?
I think for me, I have one that I try to follow all the time, and is to be a good listener. Every leader should invest time in listening and getting to know our people individually, and try to understand what makes them tick, what motivates them and drives them. So, we also need to know about what are their goals for the future. After all, how can we get the best out of people if we don't know those basics, right? We need to know them so we can, create a work environment that fits them as well.
Perfect.
I would just quickly add to that and say, for me, and I'm coming at this not necessarily as a leader, but as, someone, just as an employee, and someone who observes leadership, I would say, is to be an active and good champion of your initiatives. Not to go back to the strategy thing, but this is also about culture, right? When leadership is putting together strategies for the business, hopefully they're also talking about what kind of organization do we want to be, not as a business, but as a collection of people. And often that's put down on paper, and then again, sometimes by putting it down on paper, you think, okay, we're done. You're going to post this up on the company fridge, and that's our strategy. That's our initiative. This is the kind of company that we are, and the burden falls on the employees, to embody that. It needs to come from leadership. Every single day, you need to get up, go to work, and make a choice to embody those initiatives.
Wonderful.
It's not just the initiatives, right? It's the people. And I think that's actually, if you don't champion your people, you don't have an initiative. And I think, of course, you have to be out there and fully believe and live what you believe in and what you're working on. But I find it to be more effective when I'm focused on building the people up who are pushing those initiatives forward, making sure you're doing small things like encouraging everyone's voice to be heard in meetings, making sure that you are inviting people who are leading the initiatives, right, to talk to the higher ups, right? Giving them a platform, giving them a path, giving them the exposure that they deserve because they're working so hard. Those are the small things that I really think culminate into the leaders people want to stay with versus the leaders who might just be, visionary, strategic, and interesting, but not necessarily doing for the people to help them build up along with them. And I think that ties to one of the most important characteristics I've seen and I've always really loved in leaders that I've worked for is, lead by example, right? So I've always find myself working harder when I know that my boss, right, is working just as hard right along with me, right, hand in hand. And I find when you can set that tone, set that example, and be present for your work, be present for your initiative, be present for your people in the way that you want them to be for the job, the behavior, the motivation, and the progress is a lot stronger.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And just a reminder to everyone, there is that comment section. If you have an idea, a question, a thought, a concern, drop it in. Oh, look, and there's even a pop-up. Thanks, team. Wonderful. So we're going to be moving on to the next question. As a team here, what do you think are effective ways to both measure and support knowledge workers and their valuable contributions to an organization? I know we just kind of touched upon some things that leaders can do, but what other things besides just, a pat on the back could somebody do to make a difference?
I think, again, from my perspective, coming at it as a consultant and someone whose background is in information architecture, one of the things that really resonated me about Adaptavist's report, Productivity is Not a Place, is this pull quote, measure outcomes, not busyness. And I think that there's a lot to say there. But from my particular perspective, I really loved that because I think a lot about what I call this idea of data transcendence. So when you seek to create measurements for your business or for a project, what you have at the start are data points. And when data is properly aggregated, it becomes information. And when information is properly organized and classified, it then has the opportunity to become and transcend to knowledge. And that's where your people, your knowledge workers, whose value is in creating, sharing, and applying knowledge, that's when they really start to level up. But there's a fourth level of transcendence, and that is when the application of knowledge is properly enabled and encouraged over time, when collaboration flourishes. And that is when knowledge becomes wisdom. And wisdom properly applied is leadership, in my mind. And I think that doesn't need, you don't need to have a title in leadership in order to think like a leadership. It's when you have access to that knowledge and the ability over time to transform that into your perspective and your wisdom applied in the business context to think like a leader.
Wonderful. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Trust, right? I think that's another big topic that ties back to supporting your people, right? So you have to trust them. And for sure, trust is earned. But, for me, I'm more about giving trust up front and having a reason not to trust someone versus not trusting someone up front, if that makes sense. Like, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you are a smart, capable person who is passionate about a initiative, and I want you to run with it. And let's check in about, this is how I actually structure my one-on-ones. We're a big project team on the channel team in North America here, because there's so much to do. There's so many things to implement and change and create. Everyone on my team always has an ongoing project. And the way that I check in on it is one-on-ones. What small thing did you accomplish last week? And what small thing are you going to do next week to move it forward? Right? And those are my 2 check-in points with it. I have a team member working on something right now, and it's been something on his list for a while, and it comes up every one-on-one. It's on his list. And I asked him, is it mission critical to what we're doing right now? No, right? But he says he's working on it. So I asked, how accountable do you want me to hold you to completing this activity? And it was a great moment, right? Where he's like, you know what? I need a little bit more space on this. I'm doing some other things. I have it on my list. I will let you know when you want me to put, my feet to the fire a little bit more on that. And when you have that breakdown of it not being like super mission critical, it being something that could definitely add impact, but not going to bring us off track, give that space, give that trust, let them run with it, and just check in. And that builds happiness, that builds productivity, and I think it builds that balance. And it's hard work to do that as a manager, because my actual natural inclination is I'm a control freak. So this is something that I've had to really work on as I've advanced in managing people and understanding the best ways to motivate them. And this 100% works better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Katherine. And I'm really glad that you have that setup and that trust with your team members.
Yeah.
I think we're in the same boat here. And it's so important because sometimes you will have to have those measurements in place that maybe in a less trustful environment feels a little bit icky. Like we consultants, we have to log our time, on everything, and we use those time logs. We capture them, we aggregate them, we turn that data into information and insights so that we can estimate our projects better, so that we can find efficiencies, make those incremental improvements. Less stressful environment, a lot of people might feel uncomfortable with their time logs being, captured like that, because they might say, oh, am I being surveilled upon? Do I have to worry about taking too long on this task? In an environment of trust, right? That doesn't become an issue, right? That's not what we're using it for. We're not measuring busyness. We're measuring outcomes.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, team. We actually had a question come through our little channel over here. It's actually from one of our colleagues, Sophie. So Sophie's asking, why is giving people a choice about how they work important to productivity? And I'm going to direct this over to Marta, since I know that she has people that she manages over there at Upscale. Of course, also we work in a remote world. I'd love to hear her thoughts on everything.
So I think it all comes down to empowerment and autonomy, doesn't it? When people have the freedom to choose how and where they work, they naturally become more engaged and productive. I think it's just common sense, really. So one example that I want to bring is the unlimited holidays that we get at the Adaptavist group. Having the flexibility to choose when to take the time off, I think it's invaluable to me and the rest of the team. And I imagine probably we don't even take more days than those with limited holidays, isn't it? But it's the freedom to choose that makes all the difference. Life can be very unpredictable, so this helps us gain some control over what we need to do to get our work done and balance our lives. I think we've all been witness of what happens when people don't feel in control or feel trapped in company policies. So stress levels and anxiety raises, and the performance drops. So it's really a vicious cycle that we should try to avoid.
Perfect.
Marta, I have a question about that. And actually, I would love Katherine to weigh in too as a leader. I have spoken to people, in my own life who, when they hear that we have an unlimited holiday policy, it makes them really nervous. They think, oh gosh, I just want to know what I have. That would make me very nervous. In your mind, as leaders of people, how would you, if with a no holiday policy or something similar, how would you support and encourage those employees?
So I think, you've lost me now.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. That's why, yeah.
So I was checking, so last year I didn't take as many holidays as probably, I could have, because, there's a sense of responsibility as well. So, and to explain this to people, it's very challenging because, they keep saying, oh, you can just take, as many days as you want. No, because I also want to deliver. I also want to shine. So the fact that they allow me, is seen as a benefit, but, to me, it comes with the responsibility of being here and delivering my work. Not sure if I answered your question, but that's my take on it.
I mean, this might be, I don't know, controversial for this webinar and the way that it's seen, especially in the States, right? I think vacation might, is a cultural thing as well. Mm-hmm. Marta, it sounds like you have a more American approach to vacations than the class.
Down to my generation.
But I've heard opinions, and I think it's an interesting one, that unlimited vacation is actually an illusion of choice, right? So you're given unlimited vacation, and it's almost like a trick to your brain to not take it, that you will take less vacation as a result of having unlimited vacation. I don't know, right? There's studies that have been done on this. I think there's probably some validity to it. I think, though, going back to, okay, really what are we talking about, right? Is helping people take time off, helping them balance their work. Like, what is the core of, this question? For me, like, I have a team of people who work really, really hard. I have a team of people who are always online. I have a team who is somewhat cautious about taking their vacation days, because I think we all are really aligned to a mission, and we all are working so hard towards something very special that we care deeply about as a group. But burnout is very real. And where I think this ties to maybe a lesson for managers and an area of improvement for myself is, again, leading by example, taking your vacation time, turning off not slacking your people before hours, not slacking your people after hours, right? Creating those boundaries that can be adopted and emulated by your team, so we can create that resistance to burnout, and to really take the moments to be focused on work when it's work time, and to be off when it's off, right? And that goes to saying, hey, I want to give you all the room to work how you want to work, but if you answer an email when you're on vacation, you owe me $1, right? And that's actually something we have done on our team before. It's like, if you answer a Slack and you're on vacation, you owe the team a drink. So those are some of the rules you can put in place. Yeah. Takes away a little bit of that choice, but as a leader, you also have to look at what's best for your team, right? And sometimes you got to be tough like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think Demetrio in our audience agrees with you. He mentioned it's about empowerment, right? Regardless of the policy, it's about trust and empowerment. And I think I'm really loving this conversation and how much we're focusing on the people aspect of that trio. Again, people, process, and technologies. It reminds me a lot of, at Adaptavist, we're also an Atlassian partner. We have a lot of people whose expertise is in agile methodologies. And the thing that you think about when you think about agile, if you haven't undergone the training, is it's all about, epics and tasks and subtasks and coordinating them in, swim lanes. But what it's really about when you actually undergo the training and you dive deeper into it is how to manage people and create a space of safety and trust. And it really goes hard on ensuring that those mechanisms are in place, because only then can you unlock the process and the technology. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for that, Katherine.
No, for sure.
You've given us a good idea, Megan. I think we're going to have a communal jar at some point here at Adaptavist for every time you answer a Slack emoji when there's that little palm tree beside your name, you owe $1 into the charity box or whatever we're going to do. I'll float that up to management. I think I just came up with a great idea. Wonderful. So thank you, friends. We still have some more questions here. And like I mentioned to everybody, the comment section, you can add some questions on there if things pop up during this talk. Any comments, leave it on the panel. So we'll get to it. So going back to that report that I mentioned earlier, the little QR code that you can scan and be able to anymore. So I think it's on the screen there. We're also going to have it on LinkedIn after. So if you're like, oh my gosh, where's my phone? I can't scan this right now. Don't worry about it. Everything in there can be put up after. But for, our recent work manager report, productivity is not a place. It highlighted that there needs to be an openness of embracing innovation, including the hot topic of the last 6 to 8 months, year plus, AI. So artificial intelligence, and how, working with that is changing the way of how we're going, and the fear of change. And, some people might be a bit more hesitant to it. Do you agree that there might be some stuff with that there? Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, I think that there is, basically, Jovanka, thank you for this question, because you're asking us to predict the future, and I love doing that. But I think that there is both cause for fear and great potential, right? Like anything that is slated to be this disruptive. It's a little bit like asking someone 30 years ago whether or not they thought that the internet would have a positive or negative impact on society. I think AI is that big. However, what I will say for this particular panel and my small slice of experience with it so far as a work management consultant, I will say that what I'm seeing in my own experience working with my clients, our clients range from the teeny tiny startups or kind of bespoke organizations to those more global enterprise level companies. With work management solutions in particular, again, it's extremely important on the technology side of it to ensure that all of your tools are working as an ecosystem, that there are no silos. And that means integration, right? Monday.com is great for that because they've got an open AI. There's tons of ready integrations that are plug and play, and it kind of really becomes that hub with the spokes out to the other tools in the ecosystem. But sometimes, especially at the rate of change and the rate of new introduction of tools, there isn't that plug and play integration ready, or there's a particular automated sequence that will really level up your workflow that requires custom scripting or custom development, right? So prior to AI, that would require a developer to do, unless you yourself just happen to be a coder on the side. But if you've got, a marketing team, their skills are better suited to, ensuring that your pipe is healthy rather than, custom coding integrations. So what we're seeing is that some of these third-party applications that enable custom integrations, I'm talking like Adaptavist, Script Runner, Make.com, Zapier, they're called low-code or no-code solutions that enable you to have building blocks where you're piecing together the actions in your workflow that create that integration. And you still do, though, need to have some level of technical knowledge in order to make those apps sing. A common understanding of coding syntax is extremely helpful in making those work. But what we're starting to see is that with AI, not even that is necessary. Zapier, for example, is a beta feature where you can enter into a text interface, plain language, saying what you want to integrate and what you want it to do. And then Zapier will put together those building blocks for you and create that workflow. Maybe some minor tweaking or troubleshooting after the fact, but that is extremely powerful for people who want to put together their work management solution, but don't have access to a team of developers. And that could be for a couple of reasons. Maybe you're a very small company where every resource dollar counts. You want to be able to invest those dollars where it matters in growing your company, and you can't afford to have a full development team. Or you're an enterprise level maybe company that does have a development team, but they have their own work to do. They have their own initiatives. And so where kind of off the cuff requests like these are actually more of a distraction than a value add for that team. So, that ability to create those integrations without the need of development team, I think it doesn't necessarily threaten those developers' livelihood. I think it actually frees them up to focus on what matters to them. And it also frees up, again, smaller companies or other teams to create exactly the work management solution that they need with that integrated ecosystem in a way that they're 100% in control of.
Amazing. Wonderful. And just a question for fun here. What's your favorite AI tool right now? And bonus point, what do you use it for?
My gosh. I mean, I would have to go with ChatGPT, and I use it for everything. I mean, I ask it thoughtful questions. I ask it stupid questions. I, use it to generate insights out of a morass of data. I mean, basic answer, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool.
Are we all Chat GPT fans here, or do we have a second, third, fourth option that we're all secretly?
So speaking of the generational divide, right? Like this is where, like, this is the technology where I'm like, oh, I'm old because it scares me, right? And there's that moment in your life where all of a sudden have that realization that you're old and technology scares you. That said, there's so many cool things about AI for sure. And no, I'm not actually a big user of ChatGPT. No, I guess I'm kind of like an almost like technological Luddite in that fashion where I still like to write my own, email prompts and subject lines and, do that work myself, which is probably foolish, right? Because it can do it faster and smarter and better than me. That's, the headline here. But I will say there is one AI tool that has been very handy. I have a 8-month-old son, and we bought a ridiculous crib called Cradlewise, and it is an AI-powered bouncing crib that actually collects data on my son when he sleeps and is able to detect moments when he's about to wake up. And then based on that, I know it's absolutely nuts. It will start to gently bounce, and it will like have different levels of bounce and even play around with like the white noise based on how awake or bothered he might be, which helps him go back to sleep. So I am a big fan of that.
Asking for a friend, promise it's not for me. Does it come in adult size? Because
no, it doesn't. But it's roomy. Like if you're a tiny sleeper, you might be able to get in there. I don't know.
Yeah. If you swaddle me, I might be able to do that.
Crazy application, right? And whereas I'm like scared to use it in a work context, right? Then I'm happy to share my baby with this algorithm that does the work that I should probably be doing as a mom. But
all good. If the algorithm gets you a few more hours of sleep in a night, I'm all for it. Big fan of that.
It seems to work.
Wonderful. Actually, we had a question come in from somebody on our team here at Adaptavist. I don't know who, but hello, mystery person who runs Adaptavist LinkedIn. They had a question about fear and change when you speak to clients. Meghan, I know you're a consultant. You're the one that's, boots on the ground speaking to clients all the time, basically day to day. How do you remove that fear of change when you speak to someone that either is really hesitant to it, maybe more excited? How do you tailor your approach to speaking with clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think you don't remove it, you manage it, right? And I think it comes from, I think, at the top of the expert hour, we talked about the importance of listening. Every engagement that we do as a consultant begins with discovery. And, what we say about that is, we're going to conduct a series of interviews with stakeholders to determine, what your processes are. How do you work, day to day, so that we can match the software configuration to how you work. But what it really is also for is to listen to those triggers, right? To sort of hear, okay, where are people feeling friction? Where are, the people who are maybe new to the business and are overwhelmed by anything new because they're just trying to get their, feet on solid ground? Where are the people who are 20-year veterans and have been doing something a certain way and have been successful at it for a long time and are now being presented with this huge change and thinking, is what I do now not valuable? It's about, listening for those things and then ensuring how can we tweak process and how can we tweak technology to remove as much of that friction as possible. I think that it is, I would say, enablement and best practice application aside. Let's assume that that's a given, that that's being done. Best practices are made standard and good enablement is ensured, which is all part of an effective change management system or process. It is an antiquated idea that people should change their behavior for software. there is enough configuration and customization in today's work management solutions that the software should match as closely as possible how people behave. And that is where you're able to kind of unlock that productivity in the process of introducing something new. I would also say, again, we are really big proponents of a phased approach. If you're doing a new overhaul, if you're moving from one software application completely to a new one, we try to ensure that there's a change management process that features a phased approach. Start with a proof of concept. Start with, if you've got a portfolio of 60 projects, start with 3. Make sure that those project managers are more like early adopter personas. And then as they get up and running on that new solution, they become champions and they become trainers. So now you have internal solution champions and you have a train the trainer approach so that you can build more people onto that solution, so that the folks who are afraid for whatever reason, they see how it's working, they see how it's successful in other teams, and they have a support system in place. The one other thing that I will say is that I have worked with clients where adopting a new solution has failed. And the reason it has failed is because there was not an executive champion. This is one instance where active engagement really needs to come from the top, especially if you have a distributed workforce, whether that distribution is by geography or by verticals or by some other kind of silo. Ensure that there is some executive level person who has the ballast to keep it afloat and to keep it steady. Otherwise, it's going to fall off too quickly. I've just seen it time and time again. But when you have an active executive champion, you're really setting yourself up for success.
Awesome. Perfect. We actually had a question come in the comments section from our friend Hayden Woods-William. If you're not using AI or ChatGPT in your day-to-day, do you have any tips of how or what to use in a way that brings you back day to day in order to build it in your day-to-day environment? Where the heck do you even begin?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I think take the pressure off of yourself, right? One of the things that I thought of when ChatGPT was first a thing was, again, especially as a technology consultant in a work management solution, I was like, oh God, I got to become an expert at this thing like tomorrow if I want to stay valid and valuable as a consultant to my clients. But you're just going to upset yourself if you try and do that. I took the pressure and the work out of it, and I just started by using it for play. And I started real small. Again, I mentioned that I ask it thoughtful questions and I ask stupid questions. I started with the stupid questions, right? So like the silly things, if you remember when Alexa first came out, which is an Amazon AI assistant product, when we first got one, my brother also got one, and he would ask Alexa the most ridiculous questions just to see what she would say. But in doing that, you start to learn from each other. Alexa learned from my brother in weird ways. And, he learned from Alexa in terms of her behavior patterns and her thought patterns. And from there, you start to build and you say, oh, I wonder how he would react to this. Or what if I enter in this prompt? Other ways to do it too are just, again, take the pressure out of it and just play around. Try, if you use Monday.com, use the Monday AI assistant. Have it, write a summary for you of your items or of your board. Just play around and see. You're not going to break anything. We promise. And I am actually with Katherine in that I prefer to write kind of my own emails. I want to put my spin on it, make stupid jokes, blah, blah, blah. But when you have a morass of data and you need it summarized quickly, man, there's nothing like it.
No, use it as an assistant, right? Like I think that's the best way. Is what is the grunt work you don't want to do? And that's where you're. And the very small ways that I use it is where I like to play.
Wonderful. I've even had good luck. I was going to say, I've even had good luck using it to ask a question that I couldn't find on Google. Like I tried to find a way of how I can export something on an email to a Google Calendar link, because I am the type of person that lives off my Google Calendar. If it's not in the Google Calendar, it ain't happening. Personal, work, it doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. So I actually couldn't find something on Google. So I went and I just in ChatGPT said, hey, how do I do this? And it actually spat me up the answer that worked. So I thought it was really cool just to use that as just sort of a soundboard of like, hey, am I crazy for asking how to do this? And I've even used ChatGPT to help me with Monday.com stuff that I didn't know really I could do. So it's really awesome. Yeah.
But picking on what Katherine was saying in terms of assistant, also the autopilot for Zoom, isn't it? How amazing it is to get that summary at the end of a call, with the highlights, in case you forgot or you didn't record, or, just to save you the time, watching the recording. I think it's amazing as an assistant too.
Perfect. Wonderful. So I have another question here, kind of going back to the whole culture side of how we work day to day. How can creating a can-do culture allow people to do their best? So I know it kind of goes back to the whole idea of like, trust is a big thing, giving people the ability to work. But what other advice would you give about that? Since I know that there's a lot of people here that work remotely, work hybrid, what can we do to give more support with that?
Oh, no, please, Marta.
I was going to say, I think everyone brings something different to the table. So the job of a leader is to bring out those strengths and skills. And like I said before, listening to them and what motivates them. I also think that, we should reject any micromanagement and all it stands for, as it blocks creativity and new ideas. And, you can't possibly get the best out of someone if you are watching their every move. In fact, I think you are putting pressure and blocking any productivity. And so really, with that in mind, I think empowerment is key. Give people the resources and support they need and be there to clear any blocks.
No, and I think a big part of it too is I mentioned it before, you need to have a uniting mission, right? People need to feel connected to something bigger than themselves. And it can be challenging in a work context. People, it's work, it's your job, you need the paycheck, right? So if there is the ability, and hopefully it is, if you care and you're lucky enough to be in a place where you feel passionate about your work, really maintaining and emphasizing and reminding people of the bigger picture, the bigger purpose, and how the individual really pushes something bigger than all of us, right? That collective mission. And that's the fun part, because that's where the team part comes in, and you're doing something bigger together. And I find that brings out the most positivity and motivational behaviors that I see on my team.
Yeah, it's giving them that sense of meaning and belonging, isn't it?
Yeah, along with the autonomy, right? And it's like you need to balance all of those things, but without the meaning, what is the autonomy for?
Yep.
Exactly. Perfect. We actually have one last question to ask before we move on to wrapping up. Kat, I think I know what you're going to say about this, but you might surprise me for all I know. I don't know, but we have just so many tools. We've seen it all. You guys have all probably seen different advertisements. You've all tried different things out, granted. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? What would you recommend? If someone's like, I need to place to start, where do you start? What do you do? Tell me about how you stay organized.
I mean, I have to say it, right? But it's true. I use Monday.com to plan my whole life now. So before I started working at Monday, I use Notes, I use Calendar, I use, Google Sheets, basically. I came to Monday, learned Monday, and now, I have planned my buying a house in Monday. I have, shared Monday lists with my husband. Everything I do and organize with my team is in Monday. And, I was going to say, they're not paying me to say this, but I guess technically they do, right? But no, Monday is just how I organize my life. And I know, obviously, of course, I'll work at Monday forever, right? But one day there will be a time I will not work at Monday, but I truly believe I will still utilize this technology because it's simple. It works for me. It keeps me organized. It keeps my team organized. And I really do love it. And I think, again, when you talk about purpose, right? How lucky am I to get to work for a technology that I actually feel very passionate about and get to use? So kind of a still answer. I apologize for anyone rolling their eyes. I'll take the eye rolls. I totally get it, but it is my tool.
I mean, I was going to talk about Monday as well, Katherine, but what I will do is I will mention a tip and something that I really try to stress and encourage with every single client that I work with. The ability to customize Monday.com is by and large its biggest draw, right? The ability to configure your workflows and customize the way that it works, the automations, the integrations, all of it to match exactly your work management strategy is its strength. One of those customization features is that for a lot of the elements of a board, the groups, the items, the statuses, the data columns, for those relevant items, you have the option to choose the color that corresponds to a particular group or to a particular status value, et cetera. And, you might think that that's a nice to have, it just makes it look prettier. Now, something that looks prettier actually gets out of your way cognitively so you can get the work done. It's not distracting, but I actually take that very, very seriously. And I'm always very thoughtful about the color scheme applied to my clients' workflows, because time and again, especially those clients that tend to maybe have been a knowledge worker for longer, they always default to notifications for things that are important. Developer needs to be notified when this, and this happens. The project manager needs to be notified when this happens. The project owner needs to be notified when this happens. And the product manager needs to be notified when these 5 things happen. Notifications are important, but when every single trigger of importance receives a notification, you're not going to listen to all of them. Someone is going to immediately turn all of their notifications off and never receive another one again. Or there's going to be too much context switching. You're working on your work, and then all of a sudden that little bell hits red, or you get that notification in your email, and you're losing time. You don't think it might be a lot, but it is in the long run. It is in the aggregate, that context switching. So I always say, when a notification is required, it needs to be critical, and it needs to be, I have to action this now, or it needs longer context. Otherwise, they're working in Monday. They're on that interface all day long. Use those colors to provide visual cues for that trigger. If something has gone to high priority, right? Take advantage of those colors. Ensure that that high priority can be seen, across the kind of the holistic view of the board. It may not necessarily need a notification. I do that constantly, again, with my clients and in my own, sort of personal boards, really thoughtfully about what gets a color for that trigger and what gets a notification. And I keep the notifications to a minimum.
Wonderful. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, team. We are coming up to the hour soon, so I'm just going to have a second here for Meghan to do a quick little plug about all the great things we do at the Adaptavist group. And then we're going to say our goodbyes, and some people in the West Coast will be waking up, some people in London will be going to the pub, and everyone in Kuala Lumpur will be going to bed. So other than that, Meghan, floor is yours. Let us know about what great things we do at the Adaptavist group, and then we will be off into the sunset.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Jovanka. You have been the consummate host for us, and I really appreciate it. This has been a ton of fun, and I've learned a lot from both Marta and Katherine, so thank you guys so much. Adaptavist, what do we do? So we do a lot. From the consulting services aspect, we're end-to-end. We provide end-to-end professional services. We provide myriad forms of consulting. Work management, particularly our business practice and work management consulting, encompasses both traditional business consulting and in software implementation services. So like I said, we conduct those traditional business consulting discoveries in order to better implement your workflows and create a holistic work management solution. We are a certified Monday partner. We are also certified Agile specialists, and we have teams of custom developers. So again, we can ensure that end-to-end, fully integrated ecosystem that matches the way that you work. Our clients run, one of our earliest clients was a teeny tiny bespoke interior design firm here in the United States. The client that I'm working with now is an enterprise global operations company with employees on 6 continents. Their office never closes. So we run the gamut in terms of our expertise and our understanding. We're also app developers. Our Script Runner product, Script Runner and Script Runner Connect, is one of the leading apps for custom scripting and bespoke workflows, integrations, automated task management, you name it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I know that March was International Women's Day on March 8th, but this is International Women's Month. So it was amazing to have a panel of women here who are not only experts in their field, but also very inspiring. So thank you all for being here today with me and for just hanging out with me while I sip my coffee that is now almost done. And there's a tea brewing downstairs for me, apparently. So this is awesome. Great day, great start to the day to some people, great end. And last but not least, everybody, we do have that report. So I think a QR code might, right above me, there you go. QR code flashing on my head. Scan that if you want a copy of our Productivity is Not a Place special report. This is also going to be available on our website and on LinkedIn as well. If you missed this during the call, you can definitely go and get your copy there and it'll get sent straight to your inbox. And if you have any questions, there is a team waiting to answer any questions you might have. But other than that, thank you so much, everybody. This has been the Expert Hour. I hope to be back soon, and I hope to see you all soon. And feel free to connect with all of our experts here on LinkedIn if you have any questions that you want to chat with them after. They'll be happy to answer it. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.